I am really excited about this chapter because there is so much that we can do in regard to color inside of Photoshop CS3. If you have access to the exercise files, navigate over to the Chapter 2 folder, Creative Color. If you don't have access to these files, feel free to use your own or simply follow along. We're going to be working on the file corwig_vegas.psd. Go ahead and select that and press Command or Control O or double click that to open it up in Photoshop. Now, once this image is inside of Photoshop, what I want you to do is to take it to full screen view mode by pressing the F key. You know, one thing that's really interesting that you can do in regards to your full screen view modes is you can actually change the background color inside of full screen. So what you can do is go to your color picker, select a color, and then grab your paint bucket and shift click the background. Now, you don't want a bright red background, yet you do want middle gray. So I'm going to go ahead and single click the color picker. In my brightness value here, I'm going to enter 50%, 0 for hue, 0 for saturation, click OK, and then shift click the background. So I'm at that middle gray, which is a really nice environment to work in because it's neutral, it's not too bright, and it's not too dark. Now that I've set up the background, I'm ready to begin to work on this image. I'll go ahead and press the spacebar and position the image over to the left a little bit. Alright, well I have a vision for this particular image. And what I want to do is I want to take this image to another era. I want this image to become old, and I want the color to become really exaggerated. I want the image to go yellow and green and have the reds really saturate. So I'm going to go to my good old curves adjustment. I'll go ahead and navigate down to my adjustment layer icon and select curves. Now that curves is open, I'm going to press the spacebar and position this image even further over to the left so I can look at the image, as well as the curves dialog window. And what I'm going to do is jump straight to my red channel, and I'm going to do that with a shortcut Command 1 or Control 1 on a PC. Of course, you can go to the drop-down menu and select your different channels. So here we have the red cyan channel. I'm saying that because if you go up, it goes red. If you go down, it goes cyan. Let's add some red. So we're going to go ahead and just click in the middle and add some red, Command 2. We're going to click and bring up our greens, Command 3. Now this is going to be the important one for this particular image. We're going to bring in a ton of yellow. And what that's going to do is it's going to turn our sky green, and it's going to add this really interesting color shift. Let's go back to the red channel, Command 1. Let's increase those reds. Very cool. Command tilde will take us back home to the RGB composite view mode. And from here we can apply good old friendly neighborhood S-curve to increase our contrast and color saturation. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Go ahead and click OK. Let's look at our before and after. Well done. The image looks pretty interesting, yet I decide, you know what, the colors are a little bit oversaturated, so I'm going to bring those down just a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my adjustment layer icon, choose hue saturation, and then just take a few points of saturation off. How about 20 points there? That looks pretty cool. Click OK. And you know what? I think this image is at a pretty good place. I'm going to press the Tab key to get rid of all the clutter of Photoshop. Press F to go to my final full screen view mode. And I've changed the background color to this full screen view mode to black, so I can really focus in on the image without any distractions. And you know what? That image looks super cool. Well done. Well, there's a little bit more that I want to do with this image, and we'll do that in the next movie. So far, so good. We've taken this image to a really interesting place. Yeah, what I want to do is play a little bit, especially when I'm working color. I want to see what my other options are. Okay, so what I'm going to do is hold down the Command key or the Control key on a PC, and I'm going to command the layers that I want to combine. In this case, the curves layer as well as the hue, saturation, and adjustment layer. Then I'm going to press Command or Control G to group those, and I'm going to call these Color 1, because that's my color option number 1. Next, what I'm going to do is decrease the size of my navigator palette up here so I can really focus in on my layers palette. Next, I'm going to copy this group by clicking and dragging it to the new layer icon. You'll notice that it copied this, and I'll go ahead and then turn off the eye icon for color 1, and I'll call this color 2. Click OK. Now what I want to do with this curves adjustment layer is change the blend mode. So I'm going to go up to my blend mode options, and I'm going to select soft light. Ooh, that's really interesting what it does to the color. Let's look at our before and after. What it's doing is adding contrast and mapping the color shift into the tones of the image. It's really fascinating. Let's go ahead and double click the icon for that curves adjustment layer. Now if you hold down the Option or Alt key, it will change your cancel button to reset. So let's do that, and let's see what this image would look like on a blend mode of soft light without all the adjustments we've done. It won't look very good, but let's take a look at it. So that resets it. So there we see just a straight curves adjustment layer with a blend mode of soft light. It's interesting, but it's not as interesting as this, clicking cancel, because we get this real muted color effect, and then we get these tones and these colors mapped into the image. So there are my color and tone options number 2, and now I have the ability to turn those on and off, as well as this one, and I can see which one I like better. I hope these initial movies have been helpful. We have more ground to cover in regards to color, and we'll do that in the next movie. In this movie, we'll be working on the file rclevenger_frog.psd. Go and double click that file to open it up in Photoshop. F to go full screen view mode, spacebar to position the image to the top part of the screen. Well, let's say that what we want to do here is replace a color in this image. We want to replace the color of the eyes for this particular frog. So I'm going to go ahead and copy my background layer by pressing Command or Control J. That will copy whatever layer I'm on, and I'll double click the name there. And I'll type in color 1. Next, I'm going to navigate to my image drop-down menu, adjustments, and choose replace color. We'll be doing this technique 2 different ways. This will be the first way we'll look at replacing the eye color. And I'm going to select with my eyedropper the color of the eye. You notice that it's showing me the color there. If I need to add more colors to it, I can click on the eyedropper with the plus to add more colors and increase or decrease the fuzziness in order to get the entirety of the eye. Next, I'm going to navigate down to my replacement slider. Now, if I don't have enough of the color of the eyes, you can see here I can simply click on that, or I can click on the mask over here to replace the color. Then go ahead and click around and increase the fuzziness, which is going to extend this mask out. And I'm going to say, want these eyes to go blue. Click OK to apply that. Now the problem is that we've changed more than the eyes, yet it's not that big of a problem because we can fix that relatively quickly. We're going to simply Option or Alt click the mask icon, which is going to create a mask that's filled with black. Press B on the keyboard to grab your brush tool, and left bracket to decrease the size of the brush. Press D to take your color picker to the default black and white. X will flip those 2 color swatches, so make sure you're going to paint with white and paint in that color adjustment. And we can turn that layer on and off. Now we have initially changed the color of the frog's eyes. Let's zoom in a little bit. So I'm going to press Command plus to zoom in on the frog there. And what I'm going to do is turn this layer on and off. And one of the things I'm noticing is I'm getting just a little bit of artifacting. So what I can do with this layer is change my blend mode to color. Ah, that looks so much better. Now what it's doing is it's taking that color and it's mapping it over the tones in the background, and it looks a lot better. Next step that I want to take here is go to my adjustment layer icon, choose hue saturation, and then I'm going to drag this hue slider back and forth. It's going to give me some different options, and I'm just focusing in on the frog's eye. So let's say that nice green color there. Click OK, and then hold down the Option Alt key to create a layer clipping mask so that this adjustment layer is only affecting the layer immediately underneath it. So there's my before and after. And one of the things I'm noticing here is that my mask that I created here needs to be cleaned up a little bit. So I simply click on that mask, grab my brush tool, and decrease the size of my brush. And then paint away the area where I don't want this color to be affecting the underlying layer. And if I make a divot into the area that I want to modify it, as I've done here, exaggerate a little bit, I can simply press the X key to flip the color in the color picker. So now I'm painting with white to reveal, black to conceal, as you know about masking. And there we can see our before and after. And in sum, what we've done here is we went to Image, Adjust, Replace Color, and then we looked at how we could use that new color, create a mask to just limit the color that was being affected, and then created an adjustment layer on top of that in order to give us even more creative options. In this particular movie, I want to focus in on photo filters. We're going to be working on the image Clevenger_Alaska_PSD. I'm going to open that one up in Photoshop by double-clicking it in the Adobe Bridge. and then press F to go to full screen view mode and position the image near the top part of the screen. Now, one of the reasons I want to show you photo filters is because in previous versions of Photoshop, you used to have to navigate to Image Adjustment Photo Filter. Well, you don't have to go there anymore. You can now apply photo filters as an adjustment layer. How cool is that? Go ahead and click on your adjustment layer icon and then select Photo Filter. And here we have this photograph of a cabin in Alaska, and what we want to do is warm this puppy up. So we're going to use a good old filter number 85, and what it's going to do is simulate the traditional photo filter 85. A couple of things about using photo filters. As we increase the density, you see the intensity of the color increases as well. You always want to have this checkbox checked on, preserve luminosity. If you check it off, you're going to notice everything just looks kind of milky and it kind of flattens things out. You want this color to be mapped across the luminance and the tones of this particular image, so leave that checked on. Alright, when we take this up to about 50%, we say, you know, that looks pretty good. Here's my preview before and after. It's definitely warming things up, and I'll go ahead and click OK. And I've now applied this warming filter to the image. But I want to take this image to the next level. So what I'm going to do is try out a blend mode. I'm going to go to my blend modes, and I'm going to choose soft light. Now when I do that, the image all of a sudden becomes very vibrant, and there's a lot of contrast in the image. Now, that may be too much contrast for you. So to decrease the contrast and the color saturation, simply press 5 on your keyboard. That will take the opacity of that layer to 50%, or 4. That will take it to 40%. Of course, you can grab the scrubby sliders to the left of the percentage, or the main slider here if you want to modify it that way. So we can dial in the amount of contrast and color that we want here. Let's look at our before and after. Okay, the image is looking a lot better already. There are a couple more things that I want to do to it. Next, I'm going to click on my mask. You can see that my mask is targeted by the brackets that are surrounding the mask there. I'm going to invert my mask by pressing Command or Control I. My mask is now filled with black. Next, I'm going to press B on the keyboard to grab my brush. I'm going to get a real big brush here, paint with white, and what I want to do is I want to paint in this effect to the areas where I really want it. Let's look at our before and after. So now it's really focusing in on the cabin. It's making the cabin even seem more inviting. If I shift-click the mask icon, that's going to turn the mask on and off or disable the mask. I say, you know what, that looks pretty cool because it brings a lot of warmth to the cabin. I want to do even more with this image, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new adjustment layer, this time a color balance adjustment layer. And this is going to affect the entirety of the image, which I know, and I'm okay with it. And what I'm looking to do is to add some blue to the image. So I've added some cyan here, and I've added some blue there. I'll go ahead and click OK. Now, I don't want that blue across the entirety of the image. What I want to do is mask this off to a specific location. And the way that I'm going to do that is with a gradient mask. So I'm going to go ahead and select the gradient tool. And you can find that in your toolbox over here. The shortcut is the G key. Make sure I have black and white in my color picker down here. And then what I'm looking to do is to click and drag across the image. Now you can see what's happening with the mask. If I go ahead and Option Alt click it, you can see that I'm creating a gradient. So there's some kind of a transition here. White is revealing this particular adjustment layer, and then the gray is revealing less of it, and then eventually it's completely concealing all of the adjustment down there. Again, that's an Option Alt click on your mask. Good shortcut to have in your bag of tricks. Okay, so what we can see here is I'm cooling off the background. Now it's a little bit too much, so I'm going to lower my opacity just a bit. And then I can also obviously grab a brush and paint around the image a little bit. And let's look at our before and after. What this is doing is bringing all of the warmth to the foreground, because we know a little bit about color temperature. It makes it feel a little bit darker, a little bit later in the day by doing that. Just a real subtle shift there, yet significant one. Of course, we could try doing some things here, like taking this to a blend mode. This isn't going to yield too much for us, but let's look at our before and after. There we see that color mapped into the contrast there. So I'm going to go ahead and take that back to normal, and then just lower the opacity a little bit to just have a little bit of that mountain haze back there in the background with that blue color. Now, of course, the direction where you want to take a particular image is completely up to you. Yet, I hope you've learned some valuable techniques in this movie. More on photo filters, and we'll do that in the next movie.